Hi everyone, and welcome to our BERNINA Battle of the Longarms. I'm Deb Yu, and I'm a BERNINA educator here at BERNINA Canada. And I know a lot of you will recognize me as this.
Much better, thank you. That's how she usually joins us.
So anyways, we get a lot of questions about BERNINA Longarms, and we just wanted a fun way to talk to you all about the different styles you can get, or if you can get on a sit down or on a frame model, and just to kind of demystify all the things that, thoughts that people have about whether one is better than the other. So here we are. If any of you have any questions today, please put them into the chat box. The question box, not the chat box, the question box, and I will be constantly monitoring it to be able to answer all your questions. And this is going to be recorded, so if there are any issues with your connection, please just wait for the link that Adrian will send you at the end, and you can watch the webinar then. So if we want to go to the first slide.
There is a delay. There we go.
All right, so we have two teams. So in the teal team, we have Kellie Kasmerk from Silly Moon, and I'm going to let Kellie introduce herself because I'm not going to do it justice. Kellie?
Hi, everyone. As Deb said, my name is Kellie. I'm the BERNINA ambassador. I was fortunate enough to be brought on as part of the team, which I'm pretty excited about. I'm the owner and the founder, and I like to joke janitor and everything there is to do with Silly Moon Quilting Co. We are a Fraser Valley, British Columbia based ruler manufacturer, and it's always important to tell everyone that we actually make all of our products. So anything you see that has Silly Moon on it, we actually make it. So one of my family members has made that for you, either myself or my children at this point. We make everything, package everything, and everything is done from our property in Mission, BC. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm loving my new BERNINA, and yeah, that's it, I think.
All right, thank you, Kellie. So on the orange team, we have on Team Frame, we have Adrian Gallagher, who is actually sitting right next to me. You guys can see that the quilt behind us is, see, there she is. So anyways, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, I think if you've been to a BERNINA webinar before, you've probably seen me before. My name is Adrian. I live in Ontario and work out of our head office of BERNINA Canada in Whitby, Ontario. I've been doing this job for over 8 years and I love it. And I just hope you guys have lots of questions for us because we like to play Stump the Chump, right, Deb? Mm-hmm. Deb gets the questions and she tries to see if she can stump me on any given day. I think you got me earlier today.
Did I?
There was something I wrote down one hash mark for Deb. So I think we're going to do really well today, and I look forward to fighting for Team Frame.
All right, awesome. So I'm just going to put this out there. Adrian has access to all kinds of machines here at BERNINA Canada, and it was really hard to get her to choose Team Frame or Team Sit Down because she does love, different things on both. So anyways, I forced her into the Team Frame category. And so throughout this presentation, I'm pretty sure she's going to swap sides every now and then. So I'm just going to put it out there that, she might not be 100% Team Frame.
For 40 minutes, I can do it. I can do it. Okay.
I should tell everyone too, I'm not wearing, pajamas. This is my boxing robe.
Yep, I was gonna wear my robe and I forgot, but I'm just wearing my street fighting orange jean jacket.
Yeah, Team Orange.
Yeah. So far, so good.
Oh, Robin's called you a traitor already. So before I start letting them go at it, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the frames and then what we call them, the names of the frames and the sit-down models, just so that when we're referring to them, you all know what we're talking about. So in the top left corner, we have the Pro Frame. The Pro Frame comes in 3 sizes, and we're going to talk more about the 3 sizes later. And then on the bottom there, we have our Studio Frame. On the right side of your screen, hopefully you're seeing what I'm seeing, but on the right side of your screen, we've got the 3 table models. We've got the lift table, which is the one that Kellie has. We've got the folding table, which is the one on the right, and then we've got the koala cabinet on the bottom. The koala cabinet is awesome because it looks like a piece of furniture. The folding one stores really, really small. And then I'll just let Kellie talk to you about the hydraulic one, the lift table afterwards.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about the key features about the Longarm machines. These are going to be the same straight across the frame and the table models. So Kellie and Adrian won't talk a lot about the actual features of the machine. So these are, when I made this list, it was probably about 30 features long, and it looked ridiculous on a slide. So I decided to just shorten it to about 7 or 8 things that I really loved. And so these are the things. So the first is the needle threader and the threading at the front. So I don't have to walk to the back of the machine to get it threaded. I don't have to reach all the way to the back of the machine. Everything happens at the front of the machine, and it threads very similarly to my domestic machines. So it's not a complicated threading system. The needle threader, as I get older, it's harder and harder to see that little needle. So the needle threader is a godsend. The dual stitch regulators, there's 2 of them.
What?
2 of them. There's
Not
2 of
just
them.
one, too.
No.
Okay.
I mean, what can you say about that? It's just so awesome. I mean, just one is awesome, but when you have 2, it's double the awesomeness.
It works great.
Yeah. 4 modes for ultimate flexibility. So there's the BSR mode 1, 2, and 3, and then there's the manual mode, so you can choose whichever mode you want. I love that because I don't always want to do the same thing. And the stitch length, you can go from basting, which is 1 stitch per length, to 24 stitches, or 1 stitch per inch to 24 stitches per inch, which, you know, is everybody likes something different, so it gives you a lot of choices. The onboard bobbin winder, I love this feature. So I'm just going to keep on saying that I love the features.
Well, you got to pick, so you put your favorites, I guess.
I did. But the bobbin winder, it's great because it's part of the machine. And I mean, I can be actually quilting and winding a bobbin at the same time. So I don't have to waste time doing one separately from the other.
How do you do that if it's on the machine? That you can wind a bobbin while you're quilting on the machine?
It's a separate motor.
Oh, it's a separate motor. Okay. All right.
I just love that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll tell you that the next one is probably my favorite feature.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's my favorite feature.
It's probably my favorite feature. It's compatible with your domestic machine needles. So how that's important in my life is that I don't know about all of you out there, but I know Robin has a million needles. But you know, I have a bajillion needles for my machine. I've got jeans needles, top stitch, stretch. I've got all kinds of needles for my sewing machine. So, you know, on the long arm, I can just take any of those needles and put it onto my long arm and use it. So that makes a big difference because, you know, I don't run out because I have literally a million of them.
You don't have to go to the store and say, oh, I need this weird industrial needle. I can't remember what size it is.
Yeah, and if I just happen to, you know, break my last needle on a quilt at midnight because I am a midnight quilter, you know, I'm not stuck till the next morning without, you know, anything to do.
I love that.
Yeah. And then of course the last one, compatible with all BERNINA free motion presser feet. I have all of the free motion presser feet, and to be able to just use the same feet on my long arm is also amazing because I don't have to buy a second set of everything.
That's nice.
So I'm going to pass it on to you guys. Adrian, do you have I mean, don't copy me.
Okay, no, so you stole mine, so I'll go with the digital tension. I'm going to go with digital tension, which is not on the list. But, you know, on some long arm machines, you have to change the tension by turning a dial like lefty loosey, righty tighty, right? So lefty loosey, less tension, righty tighty, more tension. And there's often not a lot of gauges on that dial, so you can't know exactly where you've set it. So with the BERNINA, it's all done digitally on the screen. That's a little easier for me to manage because it's just like my machine at home, and I can save those settings as well. So maybe I'll go with that as my second favorite feature. Over to you, Kellie.
Thanks.
Am I allowed to talk? I'm not talking about the table now. I'm just talking about the machine, right?
The machine itself, yeah.
Okay. The bobbin.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
that's a good one too.
I love that I can put the bobbin in and I just even forget about it. And then it gives me a warning that I'm going to run out, so I can plan my path soon enough so I can stop where I'm not stopping in the middle of a quilt and then having to restart my stitches. I love that. Love it.
Yeah.
And I also love,
Yep.
and this is probably a ruler thing more than anything, I love that the light is adjustable. Because sometimes you don't want the reflection, sometimes you want more light, and sometimes, you know, I'm not a midnight quilter, I'm a 4 a.m. quilter, and the coffee hasn't quite kicked in yet, so I want to make sure that my eyes aren't quite open. So I want maybe the light not quite so bright, and I love that I can adjust the light on it to make it easier on my eyes and whatever fabric I'm working on.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes black, I need to tone that light down because it just isn't
Yep,
reflecting
absolutely.
right. Yeah. And those bobbins, that's a really good point that you bring up. It is a standard M-class bobbin, so it holds a lot more thread. And you can buy pre-wounds if it comes in M size. So that's Glide and lots of other types.
Yeah,
So
wonderful.
yeah, wonderful.
But let me tell you, that red bobbin makes me happy.
I know, I want the red bobbin in my machine, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Such a little thing.
Yeah.
So why use a long arm machine? You definitely have more throat space, and we'll talk about throat space in a little bit. You can quilt faster because there's more space and you're not spending a lot of time moving your quilt around.
The machines stitch faster,
Yeah,
like more than 2,000 stitches.
Yeah, 2,200 stitches. Yep, stitches. And anytime quilting. So you can have your long arm set up, and you know, when I want to do my midnight quilting, I don't have to reset everything and you know, do my quilting. I can just do it whenever I want because it's already set up. And on the frame, you gotta love the no basting. I know Kelly, sorry man.
She's fine with it. She's got other benefits.
But yeah, you don't have to baste when it's on the frame. There's also fewer tucks and puckers. So quite often when I'm on my machine, just because I'm in such a tight spot, I get a lot of little puckers. Doesn't happen on the frame. And then automation, the Q-matic that you can put on it. You can't beat that.
You are a gadget gal.
I really am.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
am. All right, so on the next slide, we have a little bit more about just the long arm machines and which they are compatible with in terms of the frames and the sit downs. So we've got the 4 long arm machines, the Q24, the Q20, the Q16 Plus, and the Q16. And so the Q24 only works with the Pro frame. So you will not be able to put that on the studio frame and definitely will not fit on any of the table models. And Q-matic is optional on the Q24. We've also got the Q20, and the Q20 is the most versatile because you can use it on the Pro frame, the studio frame, the horn lift table, the koala cabin, and the folding table. And then we've got the Q16 Plus. The difference between Q16 Plus and Q16 is that on the back of the machine, you'll notice that you have more places to put plugs in so that you can make it Q-matic friendly. Yep. And that you can put it on the frame. So for the Q16 Plus, it's compatible with the studio frame and all the table models. And then the Q16 is compatible only with the table models. So like I said, Q-matic is optional for the top 3, the Q24, the Q20, and the Q16 Plus, but not compatible with the Q16.
And if you get confused, you can always go to your local Bernina dealer. They can help you out with that if you get.
So an overview of the 3 Bernina Pro frames. So the first size is referring to the actual size of the frame, and then the leader size is where is the space that you can, you know, mount a quilt on. So for the large frame, you've got 13 feet of space. The classic frame, you've got 12 feet of space, and on the small frame, you've got 9 feet of space.
Yep.
And then in terms of the size of the quilt you can mount, it's 11 feet for the large frame, 10 feet for the classic frame, and 6.9 feet for the small frame. The adjustable working height is the same on all 3 of the Pro frames. It's anywhere between 35 and 47 inches, which is really great because, you know, Adrian and I are not the same height. And so, you know, we would set up our frames differently. The hydraulic lift is optional on all the machines. And that would be really great if we had that here at the office, because now we have it set up kind of between the two of us.
Mhm.
Not quite right for her, not quite right for myself. But if we had the hydraulic lift, we could easily move it up or down to suit our height.
Next year, Christmas.
You think you're going to grow taller, or?
No, get the hydraulic
Oh,
lift.
the lift. Okay.
Oh, Kelly, come over and help me out here anytime, please.
Oh, we'd have way too much fun, I think.
I know.
A quick overview of the studio frame. So it's a modular frame. So you will get
The whole kit.
the whole kit,
Yeah.
which includes the 5-foot frame and the 10-foot frame. And then when you set it up, when you assemble the frame, you would choose 5 feet or 10 feet. And then you can, so depending on your space or how much or how you want to set it up,
Yeah.
you would choose one
So
or
you
the
could
other.
change it, like if your kid moves out and you get another bedroom.
Yep.
Rachel, and you could set it up larger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or vice versa. If you go from a large house to a small condo and you want to make it smaller, you can also do that. So you'll always have that flexibility with your studio frame. So quilts up to 104 inches. And then the working height is also quite large, between 35 and 44 inches.
Pretty great.
So the sit-down models, we've got the 3 sit-down models, the lift table, the foldable table, and the koala cabinet. And you can put the Q16, Q16 Plus, and the Q20 on all 3.
And they each have benefits. Each one has a different benefit that we'll kind of talk about.
They do. I'm going to let Kelly talk a little bit more about the benefits of those.
Yep.
But they can all be paired with all 3 of those machines can be paired with any of those tables, and then the Q16 Plus and the Q20 can also be put on the studio frame. So a lot of flexibility
Yeah.
there as well, because if you have a Q16 Plus or a Q20, you can easily
Move it later.
move it to a
Yeah.
studio frame later.
Yep. And then for price points, it kind of helps to get the smaller machine or the larger machine in the table. So yeah, there's a lot of different options there.
Mhm.
Let's see what else you've got. Okay.
All right.
She's getting close to letting us loose,
Yeah.
Kelly. Get warmed up, okay?
Trying to, I'm kind of afraid of the bloodshed. So thank goodness Kelly is on the other side of the country. So
Safety first.
all right, so some of the things that we're going to talk about for you to consider before you buy the machine is, what are your long arm quilting goals? So do you plan on making it a business? Do you make 50 quilts a year, or do you do 3 quilts a year? I mean, that would definitely make a big impact on your decision. Do you like to move the pencil or move the paper when you're drawing? So one would be similar to moving the pencil, and the other is similar to moving the paper. Hand-guided or computerized. If you want something that's completely computerized, the frame model will be the way to go, because you won't be able to get computerized on the table long arms. Physical space. When we talked to Kelly about how much space she had to put a long arm, she said she was putting it into a room, so she didn't have a lot of space because she had other machines. So that was a big consideration of hers. If you're willing to put it into your living room, then the big Q24 on a pro frame is the way to go.
We don't judge here. We don't judge. If you would rather quilt than have your friends over, I'm here for it.
I'm okay with no friends.
Yeah, we have Zoom.
Yeah, we have, exactly. The size of your projects, if you are only making baby quilts, you probably don't need something that big. You don't need a large pro frame. So make sure you think about what you're working on before you commit to a long arm. And can you stand for a long time? So I'll let Kelly address this later, because she wanted a hydraulic table, like the lift table, and it was because she was concerned about sitting or standing for a long time. So we'll talk about that. Adjustable to your needs. Like we said, like a lot of the table frames can easily be converted to table models can be easily converted to a frame. So something like that would be great if you are kind of in that period in your life where a lot of changes are happening. Training and support, we'll talk about this as well, but Bernina is amazing at training, and lots of training, and has lots of support online for you to access. And we'll talk about some of those resources later. Do I have time and want to practice? So one of the major things that I get from from people looking to buy a long arm is that they're so shocked that the first time they try the long arm, it doesn't look absolutely perfect and they can't get perfect swirls. And, you know, those people who are on YouTube and Instagram, they spend a lot of time practicing, and the one that they're showing you is probably not their first attempt at it. So it's important that you are willing to put in the time to practice if you want to be
Or
good
get
at
the automation.
promotion. Or get the
And
automation.
it's perfect. I just
Yeah, that's
program
true.
it in.
That's
It's
true.
great.
And then can I try the machine before I buy it? Our dealers are all willing to let you try it. You might have to make an appointment with them, but please, you know, call the dealer, make the appointment, and then dedicate some time to trying the machine before you buy it. So now I'm going to hand it over to Kelly and Adrian and have them talk to you about the machines and why and the benefits of each one.
Thanks, Deb.
Thanks, Deb.
Well, we really love all of the machines. We really do. And today, like you say, we are playing a role where we are pretending that we are just loving one type. And so we'll try to be nice about it, but we have strong feelings. So here we go. So one reason people might consider a frame or a table model of a long arm is physical space. You know, in Canada, we're quite lucky. Our homes on average are quite large, but that might not be your situation. I have a husband who thinks that every extra bedroom should be like a games room or a tool room or something like that, and not a quilting room. Weird. So you might not have space for a long arm. They do take up a lot of space, right, Kelly? Like a frame takes up a lot of space. You can't make it smaller during the day and then bring it out. It's always there. Yeah. So Deb was talking to you about the sizes of the frames, but the actual footprint you need to put these in is quite large. So a large pro frame, it's recommended to have 2 feet all the way around each side of the machine. So you kind of need a large room for this. And we have a brochure on this. If you need it, you can download it from BERNINA.com, shoot me an email, I can link it to you, whatever you need. And similarly with the studio frame, it's much smaller, but you still do need a considerable footprint to put these machines in. If you are a little bit limited on space, what can you do? I have a couple ideas. You could add casters to the pro frame, and that way you can kind of pull it out from a wall, do your quilting, push it back, and it's not taking up the entire room the whole time. You could do that. We have some customers who have taken the frame and kind of pushed it, the side of it, against a wall, so they can't get around the whole frame, but they can get to the back by going around the one side. Does that sort of make sense, Kelly?
Totally.
Yeah, so that's how they got around that. I have one customer who was really clever. She took the doors off her closet and shoved it one side in the closet, and that's how she fit it into a 10-foot room. Easy.
I've seen that before, yes.
Yeah, and another thing you can do is just set up the studio frame as a 5-foot, and later on when Rachel leaves the house, sorry, is that getting really personal again? You could expand it to 10 feet when she finally has left the nest. I mean, when you have more space available. So that's an option as well. But otherwise, you could try, oh, I lost my sound.
There we go.
There we go, we got cabinet.
Okay, I'm up. So when I looked at having a Bernina in my home, I did have a long arm previously in the space, but because my business has expanded, my ability to have a full frame wasn't really there. And the other thing that after conversations with Deb and Adrian is I really wanted a table. Oh, we're talking space requirements, but I'm getting into all the exciting stuff I love about this.
Reveal it. Go for it.
I shifted everything in my home to make my sewing room, my family calls it the Bernina room. So I've got my room where I've got my.
So let me show the picture. Let me see if I can advance to that.
Can you hear me? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So this is my Bernina room, sewing room. I don't have all my fabric stored in here. I do have a closet with a whole bunch of other stuff, but I've got my B735, which is my domestic machine, which I do regular work as well as ruler work. I've got my frame there, my Q16 on the lift table, and then actually on Facebook Marketplace, I found this other little table that pulls out, and I can either make it really big or I can pull up one leaf, and that can be a cutting table. So it works perfectly in the space, but I can kind of fold everything down and move it out of the way if I don't need it. So if I need more of a piecing area or a cutting area, I can move the Q16 out of the way, and then I can make the center of the room my cutting area. Or if I want to put my design wall up, I can move things around within the room. So I really enjoy having that on the frame, or sorry, on the lift table for
Yep.
that reason. Should I talk now about the lift table, why I like that part, or not yet?
Yeah. Let me see if I can go right here.
Okay. So the thing I love about the lift table is in that last picture, you saw that I had that other table there. So what I do is if I've got a quilt that's even larger, in the picture that Adrian had up a second ago, the
Yep.
quilt that's there, that's a queen size quilt, and that's how much over on either side there is. If I'm going to be quilting that on my frame without any other extension tables around it. But because the table that I have is adjustable for height, if I need a little bit more space, so I want something to carry a little bit more of the weight of the quilt, I can just adjust the table to whatever other tables I happen to have around, which
Right.
makes it really convenient to carry the weight of that quilt. I work in the shop in the day a lot of times, so at night I want to sit down and quilt. So I have the ability with the table that lifts to be able to do that. Or if I'm working on a quilt that is maybe a little more on the floor and I don't want it all bunched up on my lap, I can stand up. So ergonomically, it gives me the ability to do either, kind of where my back is feeling best at that day. So I do love the table, and it's got so much space that it
So,
really,
yeah.
I don't find it restrictive at all, even working on something as large as a queen size quilt. But because the wings fold down on the table, I can work on a smaller project and still keep the room relatively open.
Yeah. It's very, very easy to use, that machine, like that
Uh,
table.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to bend over when you have to change the bobbin, you just have to lift the table
Just
up.
lift the table up. So smart.
So Kelly, Robin doesn't think your room looks realistic because it's too neat.
Well, the funny thing is, it doesn't always look like that, of course, like all of our sewing rooms. But I do keep this room relatively tidy, and my stash is in the basement. So I have everything in totes, and I bring up kind of a tote at a time, and I've got some shelving in the closet to give me a couple different options of stuff that I'm using. But I do try to keep the room sort of
Pretty neat.
organized.
So we have a question from Loretta.
Yep.
And she says, if the table is at standing height,
Yep.
is the foot pedal cord long enough?
It
Yes.
is. Yep.
Yeah.
I've just
Absolutely.
tested it last night to be sure. Yep. It works
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
If you
I'll
need a
often
smaller
put
table,
standing
there's
up.
like there's a little folding table. This is a good one too. What's great about this one is it comes totally assembled in the box. So we'll be setting this one up at Quilt Canada, Deb, and it takes longer to take the packaging off the table than to set the machine up. It's so easy to use. I love this little table. It comes in white or white, Kelly. Would you like it in white or white?
White would be good.
The
I
second
do
one.
like the idea of this, and in a perfect world, I'd have both, because it is nice to have that too, just because it really doesn't take up much space at all.
It fits in the back of like a little car. We loaded it at Quilt Canada in Vancouver into a Tesla, a little Tesla 3, so it'll fit in the back. We do have a customer who's kind of a teacher, and she has a Q20 set up on a horn lift table, and then she has a Q16 with a folding table so that she can take it to her classes. And
Absolutely.
if you don't have much space, you can just drop the arms, sort of like it is in the middle picture. And then if you really have to put it away, let's say you have a big party coming, or you can only quilt certain times of the year or something, you can take the machine out, pop it closed. It's only about 8 inches wide, 10 inches wide when you take the machine out. So it's a great little table. And there's that other one that Deb was talking about. This is the standard cabinet. So it's about the same size as yours, Kelly, without the height adjustment. it comes with leaves. So you just sort of slide them open like on the top shelf and you pop the leaves in. And this was the first table developed for the Q20. So we really kind of love this table. It's also available in a teak brown color. So if you have to put it in your dining room, you could get it to match, Kelly. It'd be fine. And we do have a couple of customers. They want it on the ground floor because the best light is there, or and you're still part of the household and everything. So I think that's a great option as well.
So many options. You need one in every room.
You need one in every room. I do love the idea of putting your stash in the basement to keep your sewing room neat.
Well, the beauty of it is, or the not so beauty, I guess, is that we're on a 4-level split. So I certainly get my steps in every time. And of course, inevitably, the one thing that you need is down in the basement. So I'm gradually duplicating everything, like my starches and my scissors and everything, so that I have down there, because actually in my basement, I have my old Bernina, my 801 Sport Bernina in the basement, all set up, ready for me to go and play at little things down there.
She's ready. She's ready at any time. No big deal. All right.
Kelly, can you use the machine without using the foot control?
Oh, we might have frozen for a second.
Sorry?
Can you use the machine without using your foot control?
I think so. I never have. I like the fact that it's the transition from domestic machine to the foot pedal is, you can do the automatic with the kick, right? But I don't know. It's just the way I do it. And especially because most of the time I'm doing ruler work, I like the ability to be able to just take my foot off and know that I can shift and move my ruler and everything kind of stops. So I don't just press start and go. I do if I'm doing like a meander all over or something simple like that. But as far as any time I'm doing ruler work, I actually use the foot pedal because it's an easy transition, and because I do ruler work on both machines, I find that it's just kind of what my body knows.
We have a good slide on that coming up, so it'll remind us in a moment. But perfect. Yeah. So we were talking about physical space, but now we're talking about sewing work area. So on the table, I mean, our machines are named for the amount of space they have from the needle to the back of the machine. So Q20 has 20 inches, Q16 has 16 inches. So, but do you really need that 20 inches to work in the whole time, Kelly?
No. I find, I mean, like I said, I've got that picture that's a queen size quilt, and I can just roll it up in the back, and you're never working in an area much bigger than what's right in front of you anyway. You're not working on something that's either way to the left or way to the right. You're working right in front of you. So you just have to have enough space to be able to balance the rest of that quilt and decrease the drag. So I'll just roll up what I'm not working on and on all sides, so that I'm just kind of working with a sandwich in the middle. And then when I go to move it, I can unroll what I need to any direction. So I find I have yet to have any reason that I need anything bigger than the Q16.
Yeah, because it just kind of, you just need a place to hold it. You're right. And sort of scrunch it and hold it so that you can just move the quilt that you're working on. So that's a really good point. Yeah. So if you were considering a sit down and you think, oh, the 16 is too small, I think you'd be surprised how big it is compared to your, 8 inches on your 770 or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kelly, are there any feet that you would recommend that somebody with a Q20 would get for a sit down?
My favorite foot is the 72S. And I have to say, when I got the 70, because I have the 72 and the 72S, they're ruler feet. When I got them, I thought, why would you want that slit in there? I don't get it. I honestly, when I saw it, I thought, I don't get it. But now I'll swap it between, because the same foot goes on both machines. So I'll swap it. I use that one hands down. It just means that I don't need to worry about always trying to feed my thread through it automatically, or if I want to take the foot off for whatever reason. Absolutely the best thing. Brilliant, putting that little slit on the side of that foot so that you can take your foot off.
We got ours about 6 months ago, and Deb and I've only used it about one time, and I remember going, oh yeah, this is good. But I forgot this is why we want it.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's so nice when you're pulling things up and moving things around too. It's, yeah, I love it. It's brilliant. So the
It's a good
72S
upgrade.
would be my favorite foot.
72S. Any other ones that you really love? That's a good one. That's a good
No, I
start.
like it because I can also use the discs with it, right?
Oh, the little couching
They
echo.
all fit. Everything
Yep.
works. And the other thing that I like about the 72S is I can use the couching foot, the couching
Yeah.
inserts that go with
Yeah.
it. So I've played with that a little bit, and that is fun.
It's too much
Yeah.
fun. Couching is,
Yeah. And the
yeah,
nice thing is I don't need to actually change and put a couching foot on. I can still do ruler work with the I think there's a picture
couching
of that
insert
up
on.
somewhere on my Instagram where I did the snowflake using some fluffy yarn. And I just used the couching insert on the 72S, and it
Yep.
worked brilliantly.
Because it still had that nice little fence that the hook could run along your ruler, and you're good to
Yep,
go.
absolutely.
You do get, it's the most versatile, right? Because you can do a lot of stuff with it.
Yeah, and the nice thing is too, you can use it, and I mean, that's a bit of a ruler sale here, but the nice thing is with the rulers is you can use the same foot to do your free motion work. You don't have to switch between different feet. So once you've got that 72S on there, you can do ruler work, and then you can, do an area of, say,
Yeah.
wedges, and then you're going to put some wishbones inside there, free motion them. You don't have to change the foot. You can use
Nope.
the same foot for both. So.
Nope. It's really good. I do love it. And it's adjustable if your quilt gets thicker or whatever.
Absolutely different fabric or what you're doing. Yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
So the difference between the work area on the table and the frame is that the frame, your quilt is kind of rolled up on it, and that rolling up takes up a little bit of space in the arm of the quilt, or the harp, whatever you like to call it. So you don't have the full amount of quiltable space. Like the Q24, you get about 19 inches of quiltable space. The Q20 has about 15, and the Q16 Plus has about 11. But that being said, once you've mounted the quilt and you're going to just travel across the quilt, you don't have to keep moving it around so much. So you just kind of move across, and you've got all of that quiltable space. So that's kind of the difference between the two systems. How large a quilt can be quilted? Well, you know, and I know, Kelly, that we could quilt a quilt as big as you want. You can always do it, quilt as you go, and put it together later. There's no limit at all. But if you really want to talk physical limits, Deb kind of talked about how the part that you pin your fabric to is called the leader on a frame, and you are limited by the size of your leader. And also you need to be able to access the machine on either side to get the bobbin in and out, because the bobbins last forever, but not really forever, for a long time. So these are the different widths that you can do. And remember that the length can be unlimited. It can go as long as you can keep rolling that up. So you can get a great king size done on the large pro frame or the classic pro frame. The small pro gets you kind of like into that twin lap size. The studio frame is more, again, for art pieces, or you're going to quilt them and then put them together. And the 10-foot studio frame does a great size, 102. That'll give you almost to a king size quilt. So that's pretty great. But how is it limited on a table model?
I'm actually going to do a strike against Adrian here.
The nerve.
So the problem, not problem, but again, of course, my world is ruler work. So those dimensions are great on your machine, but you need to remember that if you're going to do ruler work, you're going to lose a little bit of that by putting on a ruler base or a ruler plate. So once you put that on, you lose a little bit of space. However, on my machine, I lose nothing. And I've got such a big, nice flat space, I'm not limited to what size rulers I can use because I've got a big flat surface. And basically you can quilt as big as you want. You just have to be able to manage that material. So you are the quilt top. So again, you want to roll it up and make sure it's not hanging off like I showed in the picture. That was just for photo's sake to show you how big it expands.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you want to make sure you roll it all up, and by rolling it, you're not just scrunching it, and it kind of keeps it a little bit flatter and a little bit more controlled. You can even do roll it with a pool
Oh,
noodle
yeah.
along the back, and it kind of keeps everything rolled up and neat, and a little bit less chance of everything puckering as you're moving it, and kind of just, you know, flailing it about as you're moving it. So,
Yeah, or
and yeah,
flip it
you have no
over.
leaders to contend with.
Yeah.
I like that. I've struggled with leaders in the past, but that's me. I find it easier to just be able to put it down. And the other thing that I really like too is because there's no leaders, if I'm working on a project, I can just move it to the side and do something else as well. So if I'm working on a larger quilt, but I want to do something small, like just, you know, placemats or something like that, I can just push it to the side of the table. I don't have to unhook it all and get hooked all back up using my leaders.
It's
So.
true. Yeah, you have a lot of flexibility there.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
So we have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Can you just explain what a ruler base is? And then how much space is on the frame with the ruler base?
Okay, so ruler base, I actually have a picture coming up, but you can imagine if I go back a slide or two here. Okay, so this is Sylvain on his frame, and he's just sewing along. There's nothing around the base of the needle to hold a ruler, to do ruler work. So you need to clip on a little ruler base. It's removable, it clips on. You don't need any tools, it just snaps on. And that allows you a little ruler area to hold the ruler. It goes 3 or 4 inches all the way around the needle. So it gives you a nice little base. It doesn't impede the machine going back or sideways. Sideways a little, it could hit the clips, but I have lots of solutions for that. But it does mean that you can't get forward 2 inches towards the edge of the user. Does that make sense? Towards you at the very edge of the quilt. So you kind of lose about 2 inches at the front.
And that's just something you get used to, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I mean, typically when you're doing that kind of work, you want to work right in front of you anyway. You don't want to be working way at the back, or you want to kind of keep it close, because typically you're doing a little bit more intricate work and you're wanting to be able to maintain control of the ruler. So you want to be looking right down on
Right
top
down.
of it
You're
as
not
well.
reaching far to the back. Yeah.
Mhm.
So and it just, you get used, like you say, to where you roll the quilt to, because you know where you're trying to get.
Yep.
To. Yeah. All right, we have one more topic, I think, here in setting up in the prep to quilt, which is setting up or installation. If you decide to go with a frame model, it's gonna take you the better part of a day to set up a pro frame. It comes with lots of long rails. You got to take them out of a crate. And you're making a table, and then you've got to put the what do you call, the carriage on it, and you've got to attach the rails. So you're making a table with rails attached. Give yourself a better part of a day to put this together. If you add Qmatic to that, you're going to add a few hours to get the computer connected to it. If you got a table model, it comes sort of semi pre-assembled. Folding table is totally assembled. The lift table that you got, Kelly, how involved was that?
Well, again, it took longer to take all of the packaging and stuff. And okay, so here's my other thing. It's not IKEA. Everything comes with it. It's like, we're talking screwdrivers and screws, and it's so perfectly labeled, and I didn't have to go hunting for any tools to do it. Anything I needed was in the box, which was brilliant. You do need 2 people, just because you're trying to balance and stuff and you're trying to move it. It's heavy. I'm not going to say it's not heavy. And we carried ours up 2 flights of stairs, but manageable for sure. And, you know, myself and my daughter, we had it all done in, it says there 2 hours. I'd say that's on the outside, and that's from cracking the first box.
I think so, and packing the cardboard away after. I mean,
I filmed mine, so it took way longer. So if you want to see what it looks like, you can go to my YouTube channel.
there you go. You can see a video for putting it together, which is so helpful, I think, for some people to see it. But the lift table, I think you got one box that was the table itself. You put that on the floor, you add the leaves to it upside down, and then you put a couple of pieces together for the legs. The hydraulic lift system is already installed, plugged in, everything. And all you do is add those legs and tip it up, it's ready to go. And you told me that even it comes with a power bar.
It does. Oh my gosh, it's brilliant.
Greatest.
So at the back of the machine, I don't know if you can see my machine here, but at the back of the table, there's actually an attached power bar that the machine that your Q16, my Q16 plugs into. So it works out really well because then also if I've got extra overhead lighting or anything for my filming or whatever, it all can plug in right there. It's great. And then I know when I leave the room, I shut the power bar off and I know everything is off in case we have a power surge or something. I'm a little bit anal that way. So everything is on a power bar, but I love that it's right attached to the table. It's not floating around on the floor. I'm not trying to find it. It's right there behind the machine. It's brilliant.
It's a really slick system they did. So, but no matter what, your dealer is there to help you install it. If every dealer is a little bit different, some will drive the table out to you and help you set it up. Definitely for a frame model, you're probably going to want some dealer support for that. And yeah, just contact your local dealer to see what they offer for you.
I've got some questions.
Yeah.
Sandra's got a lot of good questions, so thank you, Sandra, for all your
Yay.
questions. So Ingrid has asked, do you use the extension table for the horn lift table, and do you recommend them?
Oh, the extensions. Hang on. Hang on, my screen is not advancing, but give me a second. So Kelly, you know the little side extensions that come out, you can open the drawer and put extensions on? I don't think we sent you that, right?
No, I don't. I'm just trying to think if I would use them.
Some people like it. They kind of
Yeah.
help them to navigate the quilt.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit more of a nest, I guess, a nesting kind of area. I mean, anything you got to help you support that quilt is going to make your job easier. Because one of the biggest, not problems, but one of the hardest things to do is manage all that weight. And that's what everybody talks about, whether you're free motion quilting, ruler quilting, whatever you're doing, it's managing the bulk of the quilt. So anything you've got, I don't have those, but anything you have that can take the weight of the quilt, I would say would be an advantage.
I think about 50% of our customers purchase those extensions. They find them quite useful. The great thing about it is you can add it any time, right? You can try it without, and then if you want it later, you can add it later. It works pretty well.
So Adrian, this question is for you from Sandra.
Sure.
How much do the various pieces weigh when they're shipped to you? So she watched Laura's video on unpacking her table.
Yes.
And she was just wondering.
Yeah, I think the whole shipment altogether for the standard table, because that's the one Laura did, was the standard koala table. I think the whole shipment, including the machine, was about 71 pounds, or sorry, 285 pounds. The machine itself is 71 pounds. Can you tell I work in the warehouse sometimes to help them with this? And the machine itself is only about 50 pounds of that. It's very well packed, as Kelly can attest. And then each of the table components, like for the koala table, there's 2 legs. They're in separate components. Those are easy to lift, and there's an accessory box. The tabletop for both cases, for the folding table or Kelly's lift table or Laura's koala table, is really heavy. It's about 80 kilograms, I think, or 80 pounds, sorry. And you would want 2 people to lift it. But other than that, the components, they're not that challenging.
That was a really good point. For anyone that doesn't know Laura, that we're talking about, her YouTube channel is called So Very Easy, and she has a brilliant video on unpacking the whole thing and putting it all together. It kind of goes through the whole steps, so it gives you an idea of what you're getting into. It's a little bit different for my table, but yeah, her channel has a really good video on putting the whole system together. And the machine itself, once it's out of the box and you've got all the packaging away, if you're strong, you could manage it yourself. I would recommend 2 people because you really don't want to drop it. But if you were in a pinch, you could manage it yourself as long as you carry it the right way.
Like my husband could pick it up and put it in the table. I'm just frankly too short to be able to lift it up high enough to get it in there. But I have moved it across the warehouse. Like I've picked one up, put it on a rolling chair, roll it across, whatever. Like it's pretty manageable. So I'm not sure why, but we're having a little technical difficulty with my screen. I think you still see the installation slide, right, Kelly?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep trying this while Deb asks us another question.
Can you talk a little bit about what the USB connection is for?
Oh, sure. At the back of the machine, I think I know there's one port, if not two. All of the machines, Q16, 16 plus, 20, 24, have a USB connection at the back that will allow you to update your machine with firmware. If you have a Bernina machine, you're already familiar with firmware. Those are little updates we do to improve, make adjustments on the machines, add new stitches or fun features sometimes. That's always a bonus when that happens to firmware. But that's really what that USB is for. And then if you have automation, that may be used to connect the sew head. That's what we call the Q24 when it's being moved by the computer system for automation. But that's it.
Right. Lorraine is asking about training, but Lorraine, we'll address that in a little bit, so just stick around for a little bit.
I'm just going to try refreshing my screen here, but it seems to be frozen and I'm not sure why.
What about servicing? How often?
You know, there is a servicing schedule that is with the machine, and I gotta say it is like in the millions of stitches, so it's hard to gauge how long it takes to get to that. But that being said, talk to your local stores. If they're selling Q Series, they're able to service it. Some people have remote services where you go to them, and otherwise, always, 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 I would keep your box. And that way you can pop it in the box, put it in the back of your SUV and take it in for a scheduled maintenance. These machines sew a long time without needing servicing. They do need regular maintenance like oiling, cleaning, that kind of thing, but you can probably get away with 2 years without service on Q Series. Yep.
I always make sure every time I start a new quilt, I put a new needle in and give the machine a good clean, make it a spa day, wipe everything down, and so that I know that there's no residue, no dust or anything, clean out the bobbin area, put a little bit of oil, get it all cleaned up, ready to go for the next one, so I know I'm good to go.
It really doesn't take long to do maintenance on these machines. I usually oil after every other bobbin, and that seems to work really, really well. Oh, I think I'm not connected. I'll try again. Did you have any other questions?
No, just a few about resources and online training, but I know we're going to cover that later.
We can talk to that while I'm actually just logging out.
So one of my favorite resources for training on any of the machines are the mastery workbooks that you can find online, and I think Adrian has a link for it later.
Yep.
But the mastery workbooks have just so much information on any Bernina machine, and if you take the time to go through them from cover to cover, you know, you will learn a lot about your machine and learn about just all the aspects of the machine. Kelly, did you ever go through the mastery workbook that I sent you?
Yeah, I do, and I pull that out actually fairly frequently, and I've got all my manuals there because you, especially on the Q16, you're not using it every single day, and sometimes you go, I wonder if it'll do this. And so I like the books that I can just go through step by step, and it really, really clearly explains what you're doing and what you need to do and make sure you can get the most out of your machine, because I think that's the problem with a lot of the machines now, well, and everything. I mean, you know, we've all got cars that we've got stuff that we don't know what any of the buttons do, so we just never use them, right? So the more that I play with it and the more I look through the books and stuff and find it, oh, I didn't know I could do that, or oh, I didn't know I could do that. So yeah, absolutely. Lots of great resources.
And I find that a lot of people, like, they'll go into the mastery workbooks and they just open it up and they just see so many words and so many, you know, it just seems really daunting when you look at it. But when you actually look at it, each page is actually just doing one thing. So personally, I've jumped from like page to page, not going in any sequence, because Adrian knows that's how I operate. I don't really
just
read
want to
a
know
book
what
from the
you
front
need
to the
know.
back. I just go wherever I feel like
Yeah,
reading.
for sure.
So for those mastery workbooks, like I just, go from page to page and, just learn different techniques that way. And I mean, here,
I'm
Adrian
almost
is
fixed.
usually my resource for anything. And when she's taking a day off or when she's away, I really, take the time to reference all those resources that we have. Well, there you go.
I did it. I left the
Yay.
internet. I came back. Everything is fine. My blood pressure is only up 10 points. We're good to go.
She's not even sweating. Look at that. Wow, I'm
Well,
impressed.
it's more of an internal heat, slow burn. Okay. All right. So we talked about how to set it up. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was ergonomics. I think, Kelly, you kind of covered this about the super feature of this lift table being able to adjust it to different heights.
Because I love it so much.
Yeah.
And it literally is the press of a button.
Yeah.
It's not, I know I keep going on about it, but it is hands down makes my life so much easier. It's the press of a button. That's it. I don't
Yeah.
have to crank anything. I don't have to move anything. I press a button, it adjusts whatever height I want. And I actually will adjust, even if I'm sitting, I'll adjust the height different depending on what I'm working on. Because if
Yeah.
I'm using rulers,
Yeah.
I want to make sure that my table's as low as I can get it and my chair's as high as I can get it, so that I'm really looking down at that ruler so that I can get everything lined up really well and make sure the ruler's going to do what I want it to do. Where if I'm doing a meander or something, I might just kind of relax it a little bit and might bring my chair down a little bit or the table up a little bit, depending on what part of my old age body is hurting at the time. I can adjust it to make it work for me.
It's so true. I even found that, like, I was working on a ruler work sample that was going to take about 3 hours to do. And you kind of get tired after about an hour and a half. So I took a little break. I came back and then I adjusted the table just up or down 1 inch. And I was like, oh, this is a whole new position. And off you go again. Like it's really the best table out there by far.
Yeah, I do. I love it.
I love the look of the standard table. It looks really great. It's got the storage inside. It's very, very nice as well. And the folding table is good too if you want something a little bit lighter, movable, more movable. Although the lift table is movable too with those nice casters that come in.
Yeah, just rolls right out of the way, easy peasy.
It's pretty great. Now for the frames, Deb and I were talking about height for ergonomics. It is adjustable when you set it up. You can make it a little higher or lower. I had it set perfectly, and then guess what? I added casters, which added 2 inches of height. So now it's just about perfect for Deb, but a little high for me. But no worries, because I just changed the handles. They're perfectly adjustable. You can turn them sort of straight up like you're driving a truck. You can turn them down. I put them halfway. I extend them out so they're closer to me or closer to the quilt, and it just makes it work no problem. And then, like Deb said, there's always the option for the hydraulic lift if you have the budget for that, or if you're sharing the machine. If it's a business and you're renting it out, that might be a great time to use the hydraulic lift as well. And we had one customer who wanted it because she wanted to be able to sometimes sit. So she brought it right down. She got a high sort of stool on wheels, and then she could kind of wheel along. And then she said, other times I just want to stand up, so she can adjust it and stand up. That's what's so great. You can make it work for you. All right, we're getting ready to prepare our quilt. Kelly, we're ready to stitch. What do you
Okay.
need to do to get your quilt ready on your machine?
I iron my quilt top
Yep.
and bottom, my quilt top and my backing. I have a couple different methods. If it's funny enough, even when I had a long arm on a frame, I didn't know that you didn't have to do that. So I iron my backing always anyway. And that's the way I was taught. So that's the way I did it. So a couple different techniques that I use. I will find a flat surface of some sort. And it really depends on the size of the quilt that I'm using. I have been known to, based on my kitchen table with pool noodles, rolling them out. YouTube it, it's easy. You can see it there. I'm a cheater. I spray based almost exclusively. I will pin baste if I'm feeling that things are moving and I'm not getting a good, but I'm not going to pin baste enough to hold it together when I'm quilting it necessarily. I'll pin baste it to kind of keep it together while I'm spray basting it. But typically what I'll do is I'll either in my living room or out on my deck, I just lay down a sheet so that I'm not getting my quilt top dirty. And then I will lay out the backing and then the batting and baste those two together with spray baste, do half, roll it back, do half, roll it back, and then I'll put the top layer on. And then I kind of at that point will, I use pool noodles. I'll roll it to kind of around the pool noodle. It helps me be able to move it a little bit easier if it's not too big.
Like a pie crust.
Or if need be, I'll quarter it and kind of fold it enough so that I'm not ending up with big marks in it, but it's enough that I can bring it up to my sewing area. If it's not that big, I also will use like the picture that I showed. I've got that other little table that I got. So I can put the tables together. That one will adjust to go near one of my other desks as well and kind of give me a flatter surface. But typically if it's big enough that I need like, you know, double a queen, etc., then I'll do it on the floor. I have seen it done on the wall.
Yes, I've seen
There's
that.
people that actually thread baste right on the wall. And that's a technique I'd like to maybe try once I get my permanent design wall up.
I mean, you can always use your walking foot too to do a little stitch in the ditch to secure areas and then move it over to do free motion. There's lots of different that can be done. And it's always nice to learn the Bernina way and then you go and YouTube and tweak it so it works.
Well, and if I'm working on a quilt that I know that there's an area within that quilt that is going to be a lot of circular or back and forth kind of motion, I may actually take just a straight edge ruler and do a baste around that area so that I know that area is secure, and then I can move to the next area and baste that area and then make sure that area is secure. Once I got the basic basted, then I can kind of do that each area separately.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. So on quilt preparation for a frame, you don't need to baste. You want your 3 layers separate because you actually load them onto the quilt frame separately. So that's different from how we're used to it on a domestic sewing machine. And you pin them to these leaders. That's a bit of fabric that's attached to the rails. And actually here at Bernina Canada, we use this snap system called Regina's leader grips. And they work really well so that we can change out a quilt really quickly. But yeah, it's a slightly different setup. And like Deb was saying is that on a table model, you definitely want to press out all your fabric to remove the wrinkles. But on a frame, you can avoid that final pressing. Sometimes I have a quilt ready and it doesn't get quilted. See, there she is, thumbs up from Deb. Sometimes I can avoid that final pressing by spraying it with a little bit of water on the frame and kind of using the frame to stretch it and remove the wrinkles. But I think I'm with Kelly on this one too. Ironing, good pressing technique is important too. How much fabric do you need around your quilts? On a frame, we need lots of extra fabric. We need 4 to 6 inches to allow for that attaching, that loading onto the leaders. And we like some on the side so that we can do a little bit of testing for tension. But on a table model, I don't think you need so much fabric. What do you think, Kelly?
No, I don't. An inch or 2 is all you need for sure. I'm going to go on Team Adrian on this one though. The advantage of the larger backing is that when you trim it, you've got your binding almost ready to go too.
It's right there. Yeah. I mean, I've never turned down a scrap. I like a scrap.
Yeah. I think we've all got lots of strips of batting though. That's the one thing you end up with, all of these little 4 or 6 inch strips of batting.
True. It's so true. Well, we made it out of round 1, which was set up. Round 2 is actual quilting and quilting techniques. Do we have any questions before we get started, Deb, or you're pretty good?
No, we're good.
All right, so now people were asking us some technique questions, so we'll get started here. So this is how Amanda Murphy quilts her quilts. I think this might be slightly staged because the quilt looks quilted to me. But anyhow, she uses a frame and she uses a sit down. And the basic difference here is that, well, it's not much different than how you would stitch on your 735, right, Kelly?
Absolutely. And that's the nice thing about the sit down is it's such an easy transition. If you've been doing any sort of quilting on your regular sewing machine, your domestic, it's such an easy transition because you're used to moving the fabric. You're used to holding onto the ruler, your quilt, and moving everything as one unit. So it's not a big leap. You just have more space. And now you have the stitch regulator, which you typically don't if you're using rulers on your domestic machine. So it really is a nice transition, and you're still using the foot pedal. So as far as repeatability, it makes it a whole lot easier for your brain to kind of understand because it knows you've done this before. You're just using it in a bigger space.
Yeah, that is amazing about the sit down, the table models. You're just ready to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah, and it really it's just that much bigger space. And the other thing, of course, is you've got a bigger space all around you, not just one side or the other. So
exactly. And somebody was asking, like, is there a way to like turn it on and off with a button? So on the sit down models, there isn't a button to turn it on and off. You use the foot control. But it's stitch regulation, like you mentioned, Kelly. So it doesn't matter if you press the foot control harder or softer. All the power is in your hands, how fast you move the fabric.
Yeah.
So you have ultimate control because you're doing it with your hands. It's kind of great. The other option you have is there is a function with the foot control that we sort of mentioned called the kickback or kickstart, where you just turn the machine on by clicking your heel, like Dorothy going back home to Kansas. You quilt, quilt, quilt. Your foot can be off the machine. You quilt as much as you want, like you say, Kelly, doing an all over design. And then when you're ready to stop, you just click anywhere on the foot control and the machine will turn off. You can make your adjustments and start again. So that's kind of nice if you're quilting all day long and you're worried that you're going to get tired. You can just use it as an on-off switch. It's pretty great. But it's still with your foot.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask you both a quick question about ironing.
Yeah.
Seam open on your backing?
I mean, I'm a dark side girl. What about you, Kelly?
On my backing, I always press open.
I do press it open on the back though.
Yeah.
And you guys find that it makes a difference?
It's less lumpy.
Yeah, it creates, it's flatter because you don't have it to one side or the other.
I recently have been even starting to do some of my seams open on the top. Amanda Murphy is a terrible influence on me. Terrible. All right, so when you're stitching with the frame models, it is a little different. You're going to move the machine over the quilt, kind of like doodling or drawing on the paper, sort of like that. And you use the control buttons on the handles to stop it and start it and bring your thread up and all those cool things. So it is a little different than your regular sit down model. The great thing on the Bernina is those buttons are programmable. You can move the stop start to your left hand if you're left-handed. You can, one of my very first days at Bernina, I was in charge of learning this machine that had just come out in 2015, and I programmed every button to be stop and start because I did not want to break it in my first week. So, let me just tell you, you can double up on buttons if you need to. You can quadruple up if you have to. It is a little bit different. So there you go. But whether you're on a frame or on a table, you need to secure the stitch. And in both cases, you need to bring up the bobbin thread, stitch it in place to secure and begin quilting. Doesn't this sound just like doing this on your domestic machine? Right? We all quilters, we have to do this. So on the table model, you can use the back kick to program a securing stitch, click it once and it'll go needle down, needle up, lift up the presser foot, and you can pull up the bobbin thread and just stitch in place a couple times. Is that about how you do it, Kelly?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a typical way to do it. And same on the frame model, you have to just tap the button once. It'll go needle down, needle up, lift the presser foot, again, pull on that top thread to pull the bottom thread up, put the stitch in the same spot a couple of times and you're ready to start quilting. I don't know what it is, but every male person that I've taught wants to now cut the threads. At this point, you've done the knot, so now I want to cut them. No, you got to stitch a little bit and then you can cut your threads or bury them at the end of quilting. This brings up a very delicate subject, Kelly. Do you bury your threads or do you cut them off?
I do not bury threads.
Yep. She's a no nonsense girl. You got all the thumbs up over here. It's secured, it's knotted. If it's in the middle of the quilt, I might, if it's a broken thread, I might.
Yeah, maybe, but no.
You're doing ruler work, so you're stopping and starting and doing a motif. You don't have time for that.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, there's definitely a place for it, but the quilts that I do are, going to end up on the dock with a dog laying on them. So
In the washing machine, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So same with the securing the stitch. The only thing that's different here at the end is that on the frame, you need to push the machine away and pull it back to kind of loosen the bobbin thread. And on the sit down, you need to like push your quilt away and bring it back, and that will loosen the bobbin thread. And it's very simple and straightforward.
Is there a laser pointer for the table models?
There's a laser pointer for the machines. The laser pointer will indicate where the needle is going in. I had a picture of it here. Did you see it? There, do you see the laser is indicating where the needle is going to go in? You can add that to any of the Q Series machines. It'll work on the frame or the table. Do I love it? I love it. I know exactly where I'm going to go. All right, advancing the quilt I think is next. Sorry if you guys get seasick. Yep, there we are. Okay, advancing the quilt. What does that mean? Remember on the frame model, you've kind of got it rolled up and you're quilting across the quilt, and it's almost like a hoop. It's almost like you've hooped that area of the quilt, and now you need to move to the next area. Similarly, on the table, you've quilted this area that your hands can reach, and now you need to advance to the next area. How technical is it, Kelly, to move to the next area?
not on my machine, it's not at all. You just move to the next area.
You just
Like
push
I
the
said
quilt
before,
over. Yeah.
this a couple times. I just readjust the fabric to make sure that it's flat and balanced, and I'll take a minute and kind of pet it flat
Yeah.
to make sure everything's good, and I might run my hand underneath the back just to make sure there's no puckers, but
Yeah.
it's easy.
And I mean, you can move from any area. Like if you were doing a motif that you were doing in the top corner and you want to do it in the bottom corner, you
Yeah.
just go and do that, right? You don't have to like unhook your quilt or no.
Yeah, and that's really handy too if you're trying to repeat a design in different areas. Excuse me, you can say, for example, you want to use a drop ruler and create some flowers. So if I want to do that in one corner, I can go ahead and do all of my drops before I go, and then or before I move on to something else, a different ruler. So that is in my head, and I can easily see where I've placed those as well.
Yeah. And you can reference it. Oh yeah, it had 8 points or, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. I can pull it back. Quick funny story. So when I had my long arm on a frame, I had done one corner and used our spacing guide to determine how far apart I wanted the lines. And by the time I got to the other end of it, of course, time had passed, shall we say. And I'm like, well, I don't need to unroll it. I totally know what I'm doing. Yeah, I didn't. So yeah, there were two corners that were totally different than the other two corners, but whatever.
Design decision today.
Yeah, exactly.
Too bad.
Exactly.
And then on a frame, all you have to do is release the locks roll it up a little bit, relock it. And like Kelly says, you want to smooth it, make sure there's not a ripple in the batting or something like that's happened. And you can secure the side clamps and continue working your way down the quilt. So you are kind of generally working your way from the top to the bottom of the quilt. So if you want to change techniques, you can do that, but it does kind of alter the way you have to, you can't unload the quilt. Do you know what I mean? Like now if I've stitched it down in the middle and I want to get to the top, I can't separate the 3 layers anymore. So you kind of have to treat it a little differently. Totally doable, but you have to think your way around it a little bit more. All right, changing directions on the table model, same thing. You can move in any direction. You want to do borders first? Why not? You want to do the center blocks? Why not? Change techniques. Maybe you want to do all the stitching in the ditch first, and then you're going to go back and do the ruler work, and then you're going to go back and do the free motion. You can cover it in any order you want. right?
I typically will start in the center of a quilt.
Mhm.
Because mentally that's the hardest place to go, because if you're working on a sit down machine, that's where you've got the most bulk that you're dealing with on all sides.
Yeah, that's
It's a
true. So
mental
you start
game that I
there.
want. The
Yeah.
rest is easy after this.
It's true because it's all at the edge and you just turn your quilt and it's always at the edge. It's
Mhm.
great. It's easy peasy. So in a frame, if you are trying to do something, like I said, you're usually quilting top to the bottom, but imagine you have continuous borders going all four sides of your quilt. How are you going to handle that? The quick and easy way to do it is to just quilt the top and bottom border, quilt the middle of your quilt, take the quilt off, turn it sideways, and then quilt the sides because now they're top and bottom. That would be one way to do it. You can also do each section as you go, and I kind of have a diagram here done in Qmatic, our automation, where each green circle is a start-stop point. So this was designed by Nina McVeigh from BERNINA of America, and she does this as an exercise to show you how to connect designs all the way down the quilt. So she literally starts at the top of the quilt and works her way down and does this whole motif. It's pretty awesome. That's on We Also if you ever want to make that beautiful quilt. That's what Deb was saying. There's all kinds of support available for you. All right, free motion quilting. What do you have to say about free motion quilting on a table model? What have you got, Kelly?
Well, I think we've covered a lot of it. The one thing I do want to talk about is the stitches per inch. The default is 10. I go 8 for my stitching, and for no reason other than it makes it easier to pick it out when I do it wrong.
I'm
Um,
here for you.
what's that?
I'm here for you. I agree. I agree.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
get to 10 and it's a beautiful stitch and it looks amazing, but yeah, you're starting to get into the realm of I really don't want to pick this out, especially if it's a large area. But I just love it, and the stitches are perfect every time.
Yep.
You
If
know,
you're
it's
doing
such
a
a
smaller
beautiful thing,
motif,
right?
yeah, if you're doing a smaller motif, you're going to want to make the stitches smaller. Otherwise, you're not going to get the nice curves. But you
Yeah,
know, you can pick a stitch and you can save it, and then you just use that stitch setting all the time.
yeah, absolutely.
Kelly, I like 10. Do you know why?
No,
The machine turns on at 10 and I can't remember to change it, so I stick with 10. And it
that's
looks
the first
fine.
thing I do. I turn it on and I change it to 8.
Well, you could use your personal program to save it,
I could, yes.
but you're like me, you're like, let's just get going. I
Let's
know.
get going.
Yeah. Same thing with the frame is you just move the quilt over, you select the stitch size that you want. The Bernina stitch regulator is going to make your stitches look great. Like Deb said, there's 4 modes of stitching. You can see them on the right-hand side, BSR mode 1, 2, 3, and man for manual. Manual means the BSRs will not be working for you at all. No stitch regulation. Have I used that setting? Only to demo, Kelly. I don't like it. I prefer the stitch regulators to do the work.
You get a
Um,
little spoiled when it's telling you that the stitches are the same, right?
I'm living the Bernina lifestyle. I'm in there. And then BSR mode 3 is a basting mode with just some presets. It's no big deal. BSR mode 1 and 2 are just like on your regular Bernina sewing machine. BSR mode 1, as soon as you press start, the needle starts to go, and if you move the fabric, it'll keep up with you and make your stitches look amazing. It's terrific. The only thing different with BSR mode 2 is what? It waits for you to move the fabric. So some people like that because they can quilt and quilt and quilt and quilt, and then they can move their hands and then they can continue quilting and they don't have to stop and start the machine again. I use both of the modes. I like them both. I flip flop all the time. Do you have a preference, Kelly? You probably like
I
mode
use
1.
one. I
Yeah,
like one.
yeah, you just stop. So for a free motion tip, Lisa Kellie is a Bernina USA ambassador, and she uses the Echo quilting clips on her 72S. I will let you know, Kelly. And she uses that to help keep her motif spacing the same throughout the quilt. I thought that was genius. Because she's using a spacing here of about 3/4 or an inch. She wants her meander to be like an inch apart, and she put the Echo quilting ring on to help her with that spacing. So there you go, free tip today, Deb.
That's genius.
You're welcome, Deb.
I have a question here.
Yep,
It
yep.
says, is there a big difference between the studio frame and the pro frame? Someone told her that you cannot lift up the top on the studio frame to check if everything is flat.
That's true. They're on the pro frame, the top bar, the quilt top bar, which is actually the one on the bottom of the frame. You can actually lift it up and look underneath and adjust your bobbin you can have better access to your bobbin. I got to tell you, I don't like using that method because it actually can distort your quilt. So I just bring my machine over to the left or the right, and that's where I change my bobbin. I tend not to use that underlooky thing. I just put my hands one on top of the quilt and one underneath, and I kind of feel that the batting is smooth. That's a preference. And the only other thing that's different about the classic and the pro frame is you can't put a Q24 on that classic frame, and the classic frame goes together a lot faster. But I love the pro frame. I think it has, I want to use a Q24, so because I'm spoiled. So I'm going to want that. And also it just the way it's put together, it's all one seamless piece. I really love that about it. All right. Ruler work. Let's talk ruler work. I think I have an expert here somewhere.
You gotta be careful. I start talking about ruler work and we could go way over time.
I know, but just the basics, like what is ruler work? Why was it developed?
So basically, ruler work gives us a guide to follow to create either random shapes, like you see here with our twisty ruler, or specific shapes. So we've got Twinkle, which is our star set. We've got 3 of them. We've got Cupids, which we've got 2 of them. So you can either create a specific design or a random design. And the beauty of ruler work, a lot of people when they're looking at their quilt, they get stuck because they don't know where to go next. They don't know what to do. And that's why a lot of people get frustrated with free motion quilting. And if you throw in rulers, it just gives you that guide that's already there. So if I put that Twinkle ruler down, I know I'm going to create stars.
Yeah.
And so we can then turn around and make designs that are similar to a pantograph that you would do on a frame. You can now do that on a sit-down machine. So you can do, in this example here, I've done a heart, and then I've done a meander, and then I've done a star. So then I could go from that star and I could go ahead and do another meander. So it's a way to travel across the quilt, but have some consistency. And so, for example, circles or hearts, they actually look like circles and hearts and stars, because if you saw my circles before, this is why we started making rulers, because my circles did not look like circles. So yeah, that's basically it. And on the sit down machine that I've got, you can use any ruler really, because you've got a nice big flat space. And when you're using your ruler base on your frame, you want to make sure that you choose rulers that are going to work, that you can keep them nice and flat.
Yeah. But it's an interesting concept because like you say, when people get to free motion, it's time to free motion quilt my quilt. They're like, but how now, right? So
Yeah.
it gives you a framework. There's minimal marking, right? You can often use seams that are already there. So I think.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is too, is like with a lot of our rulers, we put extra markings on them to help you. I'm not a fan of marking. Anyone that's ever taken a class with me knows I don't have time for that. Let's just move on. So we make markings, like for example, on the twisty ruler there, we put markings on there so you can repeat that design all the way across your quilt and then shift it down and come all the way back, so that all the way across that quilt, your spacing is exactly the same. Whether you're going up or down, all the way across it, it's the same. And the same with the stars or any of them. Use the markings that are on the ruler, because then you don't need to mark it twice.
Yep, and you can do ruler work on a domestic sewing machine or a long arm. The benefit to the BERNINA Longarms is, remember that the BERNINA stitch regulators are built into the machine. So every stitch is regulated, right?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
amazing. That's amazing. So like we were saying, on a table, if you're ready to do ruler work and you have a sit down model, what do you need?
Ruler foot.
You need a ruler foot of your choice. Yeah,
Yeah.
we know that your favorite's going to be the one with the slit, the thread slit in it.
Yeah, absolutely, the 72S.
Yep.
And really, that's all you need. There's some other things that you really might help you. You want to have a pair of gloves that have some grippy on the bottom. If you're moving it on your sit down or on your domestic, it just makes life a whole lot easier.
Oh, you can put a dude. I didn't put a picture of a dude.
Yes.
You might want a dude for spacing, yeah. A dude is a really cool tool that they have at Silly Moon. And see, he's a guy, and each one of his appendages is a different seam allowance.
Mhm.
I have
And
it.
the reason we came up with Dude too, it's kind of interesting, is because one of the appendages on Dude is 1/4 inch. So anytime you're using a ruler foot, your diameter of your ruler foot is 1/2 inch. So that means your needle is always going to be a 1/4 inch away from the edge of your ruler. So by using that, the 1/4 inch appendage on Dude, we now can tell exactly where our needle is going to end up. So we can line up our ruler. So if we had a seam and we used a straight edge ruler, we can use Dude to line up at the other end to know exactly where our stitches are going to end up.
Yep, because you don't want to line up the ruler if you're trying to do stitch in the ditch. You don't want to line it up right against the ditch, because then your stitch is actually going to be a 1/4 inch away. You want to use Dude to move it a 1/4 inch away so that it'll land right in the ditch.
Exactly, exactly. It also helps too if you're doing any kind of ruler work to know where your stitches are going to end up. So for example, in the picture there of hexie, if I want to put a hexie frame around something, I can put my ruler on top of there and I can use that little 1/4 inch as a guide and go all the way around. And now I know where my stitches are going to end up, so I can make sure that I'm spaced in a way to complement whatever it is I'm trying to frame.
I've been using my Dude, but I'm going to use him even more now I know how to work him out. That's amazing.
We love Dude.
Tune into Kellie's social media for more tips. Holy moly, that's great. And the other thing is, if rulers can be expensive, and if you don't have every size of ruler, you could use those Echo quilting clips we were talking about earlier for the gauge. You can use them to kind of expand your ruler collection. So if you have a 3.5 inch ruler, but you need a 4 inch ruler for the recipe you're working on, you can add a 1/2 inch by adding on one of those Echo quilting clips, or you can use them to echo. They work great for echoing as well. So
absolutely.
Something great to add to that foot. Oh, and somehow my ruler work slide for the frame got missed. I'm sorry about that. But you can do ruler work on a frame as well. Maybe it's the next one. Nope.
No, you have to go back a couple, I think, Adrian. It had the ruler base on it.
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking. There it is. Thank you. So for the frame, you do need that ruler work base we were talking about earlier. It just clips in like that. You need a ruler work foot and then any appropriate ruler. And when we say appropriate ruler, we mean quilting rulers, not like Olfa cutting rulers, right? It needs to be a quilting ruler, the right thickness so that it won't slide under your foot and so on and so forth. So
just to, if I can interject just a second. So if you have a BERNINA domestic machine, you're going to use the same ruler foot and you're also going to use the same rulers. So a lot of people that have a different brand domestic and then a long arm, they have to use maybe different thicknesses of rulers. But the nice thing is that the rulers will work for both machines.
Yeah, I do the same, whether I'm sewing on the 770 or my 480 at home or the long arm. We use those long arm rulers because the way that 72 foot is designed, it can go around the long arm rulers. And personally, I think they last the longest. They're my favorite. Yeah. Pantograph is another technique that we talk about. Pantograph is usually a paper guide that a laser follows, or it could be a grooved board that a stylus rides in, and that you move the machine following this line to give an all-over design that's more even, and you don't have to come up with this design yourself. You can follow along the paper. So this is an example by Urban Elements, and you can kind of see this is the paper on the right-hand side, and then it's translated into the design on the quilt on the left. Looks amazing. You generally want to do a pantograph on a frame. It's an optional attachment, sort of shown here on the screen. It's missing the control screen, but it consists of a control screen, handles, a laser, and a stylus. I've run out of words now. That's what's happening. And you use the laser to follow the paper patterns. And you advance the quilt after each row, and it gives this great edge-to-edge look. Can you do this on a sit-down?
Yes.
Kinda.
Kind of. You don't use a laser, but you have stencils that you can use for sure. You can mark it out, and if you use the stencils there, you can use like a pounce powder or something like that to stitch out your design, or to mark out your design and then stitch it. You can use a ruler, like we already talked about Twisty there.
Yep.
one of the easiest ways, and my go-to way for, you know, the baby showers tomorrow, wait, what, I thought that was next weekend. We've all done that, right? So
Yep.
my easiest way to get sort of a pantograph or a more uniform look, but kick it up a notch from straight line quilting, is to use a ruler that is a shape like a heart or a maple leaf or a star or something like that, and
Yep.
do one. And much like I showed there, but you don't necessarily have to use a ruler to do that meander. So you can do a star and then do a meander and do a different size star. So you kind of create the same image or vibe of a pantograph,
Oh, I
but
see.
you're determining where you're going to put stuff.
That's so cool. It's kind of like the best of free motion and rulers together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vicky has mentioned that So Very Easy, which we mentioned earlier. Laura, she's done a lot of YouTube videos using these techniques on
Yeah.
her table model. So
Yeah, she makes her own stencils. She uses pounce. She's done various things to create an all-over look without having a pantograph kit. It's
So
totally doable. Totally
one
doable.
of the things that I do too is if I've got a large quilt and I want a specific design, so say for example, I'm going to make flowers or whatever across my quilt, I'll lay it all out and then I just use a piece of masking tape and I put it where I think I'm going to want the design,
Yeah.
so that I can stand back and take a photo of it and go, yes, that looks balanced, or no, it doesn't, before I get it on my machine. And then I'll either pin the piece of masking tape, or if you've got really good masking tape and it'll stay, or you can put a little mark with your marker or whatever. But then I know that that's going to be the center of my flower. And I know already, because it's already out, because I'm basting it, I have a pretty good idea what it's going to look like and what I want to put where.
Oh, that's a great tip to keep the motifs uniform throughout.
Mhm.
Sometimes I get really sad at the end of a quilt and I want it to take longer. So my designs tend to get smaller, Kelly. A lot of people go faster because they want it to be done, but I get kind of sad. They get
No, I'm,
smaller.
I'm the get it done person. That's why I don't bury threads, because it's done, it's done.
That's awesome. Do you have any more questions about pantograph? You're
yeah,
good?
we're okay.
Okay. Automation can only be put on a frame. This is a computerized system where the sew head itself, the Q20, Q24 is going to move by itself like it's possessed to create beautiful designs for you. And our automation is called Qmatic, and it consists of two pieces of software. Our BERNINA Qmatic software to lay out the quilt and sort of control where the machine is going. And you also get a bonus software called Art and Stitch, where you can modify existing designs. So maybe it's a tree with a bird on it. You don't like the bird, you can take the bird out and create your own design. Or you can use it if you buy the wrong file type at midnight when you shouldn't be doing that and you need to convert it into another file type, you can use it for that. Ask me how I know, Kelly. So there really isn't a equivalent of that. I don't know what's happening to my slide. We won't worry about it.
Adrienne, I
Yeah,
have to step away for 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
great. I will talk about this. So that was round 2, which was all about the techniques. So you can see that just about any technique that can happen on a sit-down machine can happen on a frame, and vice versa. I think the only one that's frame only would be, say, Qmatic only. Fair enough, Deb? Deb's agreeing with me, so we know it's okay. All right, so the last thing that Kelly and I were going to talk about was creative uses. What other things can you do with your machine other than just straight old quilting? And you can do thread painting. This is really a cool idea where the back of this quilt had a very leafy design, and this person quilted from the back, and then when you turned it over, you get this quilt motif on the front. I think that's very creative. You can, of course, just add dimension with thread painting. You can sketch by thread painting. So if you have a picture of your dog, you can kind of project it onto paper, draw it out, and then you can kind of thread paint it on. So thread painting is something you can do as a non-quilting quilting technique. You can also create your own type of fabric. So this is a blog from the BERNINA International blog where this designer, she keeps her threads, her scrap threads, and then at the end of the year, she makes her own fabric by sort of stitching it onto a base fabric. So the top is the resulting fabric. Or you can do like things like Kelly was talking about, couching and stuff like that, and incorporate it into your quilting or your non-quilting. Here's where it's on a a jacket, but they use the Q20 to attach it this way. So that's kind of cool. And of course, you don't have to just make quilts into quilts. You could make them into jackets or bags or garments or hats or placemats or scarves. Or my whole house is about to be quilted. My husband still wants a quilted motorcycle cover. I haven't. No.
Oh, that's a great
Oh
idea.
no, stop.
Oh, good idea. You
Kelly,
make me one too, Adrian. I'll take two.
Okay, I'll get my muslin out. Here we go. All right. And of course, there's other quilting techniques like quilt as you go. You can quilt as you go on the frame, on the table as well. You can do applique, piecing, and even binding. There's great tutorials on this on our website called wealsew.com. And down at the bottom there, you'll even see one of Kellie's newest rulers called Hexie, where she's kind of used it to cut out the fabric, but she's also used it for the quilting, which is just, I love a tool that can do more than one thing, Kellie. It's amazing. So check that out. I think that's a new class, right, Kellie?
It is a new class. Yeah, we take the ruler and we use it to cut the fabric and quilt the pieces onto the fabric and quilt the background.
Amazing.
Really.
Amazing.
Jane has asked a really good question.
Sure.
How difficult is it to learn Qmatic?
How difficult is it to learn Qmatic? It is not difficult because, first of all, it's a very intuitive program. If you can use a smartphone, you can use Qmatic. There's a lot of onboard help. Each button kind of has help and what you can do. And true to Bernina form, the manual tells you what each button does. Great, read that, put it aside, download the Bernina Mastery book and do the exercises in the Mastery book. You'll be ready to go. A couple of lessons and honestly, you'll be ready to go on the Qmatic. It's really, really fun. Edge-to-edge quilting is pretty easy. I think, Deb, you got it in a couple of lessons. And then custom quilting is a little bit trickier. You have to do some practicing with that, but there's all kinds of tools, lessons, inspiration, videos, projects on We got you covered. You gotta love it. Don't worry about it. It's Bernina. We've got you covered for sure. For sure.
And I think on the latest update, the icons, which used to be little pictures that you had to kind of decipher, now
they're
you could
labeled,
change
I think.
it to a label.
So we're always updating it as well to make it a little bit better, more user friendly. They changed the stop and start. They changed some colors. It's a little easier to see where you've quilted and where you haven't. So you're going to love Qmatic.
Even the Q series as it stands, the display and everything is so intuitive. And like you can go on there and you go, now how did I put the bobbin in now? And you click it and it tells you right there. You don't even have to pull out a book. It just tells you right on the machine. It's brilliant.
There's a video. You've gone to Florida, you come back, it's 6 months later. I can't remember how to thread it. Yeah. There's a video. You can pause the video, get to the same point, click the video and continue the thread. It's
brilliant.
There's lots there to help you. Trust. And your dealers are so knowledgeable, they'll help you as well. So not to worry, not to worry. All right, couching is another fun thing you can do. You can use your number 72 or 72S and just insert the couching inserts. They come as a set of 3, and that's to accommodate different thicknesses of yarns. Have you tried different yarns, Kellie?
I have. It's so fun. I love it.
It's adorable. It's just so much fun. You can use it with Qmatic, like the pillow, to get these perfect designs. You can use it with rulers, like Kellie was saying, or you can do it organically. There's another Bernina of America ambassador called Carolina Asmussen, and she's doing an entire couching course. I'm so tempted. I'm so tempted, Kellie, because
that sounds like fun. I think I need that class.
I know. And then, did you know you can do twin needle quilting? I think this is the only long arm on the market you can do twin needle quilting, and it looks really amazing. Works on the frame, works on the table. Guess what? If you have a Bernina domestic machine at home, you can do twin needle quilting with your BSR. We can all play this game. We can all play this game, Kellie. You're a winner and you're a winner. That'll be great. So there you go. We are all winners. The table and the frame models offer a wide range of capabilities. There's the right one for just about any space, no problem. And like Deb said, if in doubt, start with a table model and move to a frame model later, because those most of the models will move over. Certainly a Q20 will. I wanted to mention that we are having a sale on right now on long arms. Guess what, Kellie? On long arms. And lots of great offers. So check them out at your dealer or online. I'm sure if there's so for example, there's an offer right now with Q20 with the horn lift table, but if you really had your heart set on the Q16 plus and a horn lift table, ask your dealer. They have got pricing on all of our combinations right now. You'll see us at Quilt Canada as well. Lots of savings on frames as well. Okay, support. A couple of customers had questions about support, right?
Can I interject again?
Yeah.
So even though, yes, they're on a great deal, all of the Berninas are on a great deal, but have I got a deal for you?
What? You have
Hey,
a
Adrian,
secret?
you can't listen to this. I have an advantage over Adrian in this one. So if you decide that you want to purchase a Bernina, Longarm doesn't even have to be a Longarm, even if you want to purchase a regular Bernina. If you send me a message, either on Facebook, Instagram, or email me through my store, I have coupons.
Yep. Our ambassadors have special powers. They can offer little discount coupons if you see a presentation and you're ready to buy a Bernina within 30 days, because it's got to be within 30 days, right, Kelly?
Yeah, absolutely.
And she will be happy to send you one and give you a little extra Bernina ambassador love to
That's
get you
right.
into a nice long arm. Yeah. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for reminding me, Kelly. I was going to forget about that.
Well, I'll never
forgot-
forget about that. It's a
I
competition.
forgot you had a superpower that I don't have.
I gotta sway this a little bit one way, right? That's how I can do it, by saving people more money.
I love that. I love that. So how we were talking about support, we've got 3 different workbooks for Q Series, one on the Q Series. So whether you have a table or a frame, it teaches you everything about stitch length and regulators and all those things Kelly was talking about. Qmatic has got its own book, and so does accessories. And if you want to even learn more about your Bernina machine, we have a Bernina Longarm event happening in Whitby in September. So if you're interested in that, send me an email. I'll get you a spot because we only have about 12 spots. It's going to be September 20th to 22nd with Bernina International, Canadian International Ambassador Robin Bogarts. She's amazing. She's going to be with us.
She's here today.
She's here today. That's the Robin giving me all those troubles, all those questions. And if you're looking for more inspiration or you want to look more into the product itself, I highly recommend the Bernina International YouTube channel. Be careful, you will get sucked in and watch all the amazing videos that they have there. They have them grouped in playlists, or you can just bop around, search Longarm, see what you get. And wealso.com has great projects, everything from ruler work, right? Free motion, great tips, technical tips, and talking about, are you ready to become a long armer? All kinds of different articles. So that's free, go there. And if you have more questions for us, don't hesitate to reach out to Kelly. As you can tell, she's really shy. You can reach her on all social medias. However you can reach her. And of course, you can find her products at all kinds of fine retailers in Canada, the US, other countries, everywhere.
Australia, Belgium, Netherlands.
Wow, awesome. So yeah, anything else? Do you have any other news from Silly Moon you have?
I don't think so. I think our newest email address, or our newest ruler, is the Hexie.
Yep.
But we offer a lot of classes, and through the pandemic, we switched to online classes, which of course, who didn't? But I do teach the beginner class still live via Zoom, but most of my classes I offer is an on-demand, so you can watch it when you want. The beauty of there is an on-demand class. My beginner class I offer on-demand or on Zoom. You can do either. And the on-demand class, the Zoom class, if you take that class, you still get a recording afterwards, so you don't have to remember everything in the class, because it's a lot if you've never done it. There is actually a free one on my website that you can sign up for, just to kind of get a feel for what I teach like. Know that if you ever take a Zoom class or a lecture for me, if I say 30 minutes or 3 hours or 2 hours, add 30 minutes on it for a buffer every time, because as I'm sure you figured out, I talk too much. So.
Well, it's only because you share, right? Some teachers don't share everything, and I just love when people share their experiences and how it really goes down, you know?
Thank you.
I have too many computers. I'm trying to move the wrong computer. If you need to reach Deborah, you can reach me at agallagher@berninacanada.com. You can reach out to Deb on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, our YouTube channel, and there's a contact us link on bernina.com. I highly recommend you sign up for our newsletter or one of our social medias, and don't forget to sign up for Silly Moon's newsletter because she's got lots of great info on what's happening with her. And of course, we want to thank Kellie for being with us today and tackling the team sit down. Everybody, I think she did great. Woo! Yay!
Thank you.
And it was and Deb gives you a thumbs up. So there you go. You did great. And thank you, everybody who watched. The recording is available. You can share it with your friends. You can watch it again if you wanted to catch some more of those tips and tricks. And other than that, we really appreciate your time. Any last words, Kellie?
No, I saw a question there about my email address. It's just basically sillymoonquiltingco@gmail.com. You can also go to my web store and to my website, and there's a contact us, and it'll link you right through the same email.
Easy peasy. Any last questions, Deb?
No,
Lots of people had fun?
it looks like we did good. There's not a lot of questions.
And we went long, so now it's time to tidy up, load this up to the internet, and go home. Thanks, Kellie.
Thanks, everybody.
See you next time.
Thanks, Kellie.
Bye.
Bye.